My name is Anthony Linkowitz, and I am a junior at Dartmouth College, and I'm studying art history. My story goes back to Hemet, California, where I grew up, and it was there that I noticed that there were a lot of street signs running north and south that had names that were not like the other streets in town. Turns out these streets were named after Ivy League schools. I didn't know that until I believe my dad told me that, hey, yeah, these are named after schools. Harvard, that's an Ivy League school, Yale, Cornell. We even had a Dartmouth middle school, believe it or not. And I didn't know these were what the Ivy League really meant until it was explained to me. And then I realized, oh, wow, they must be important big schools or at least be, very esteemed to have streets named after them. And so even from a young age, I knew that the Ivy League schools were something to be kind of venerated. But fast forwarding to my education, after I finished high school, I really wasn't feeling compelled to go pursue a college degree. It really wasn't something I planned on. I thought, hey, I'll just get a job, I'll work my way up, just work hard and see where things go. I really wasn't interested in planning things out, didn't have a 10-year plan, so to speak. I knew I liked learning and I never hated school, but I didn't know if college was a place for me. It just didn't seem like it was in my path. But what I did find out after working for a little bit was that I think I do eventually want to go back to school. That might be, it started to come on the radar slowly. And so at the same time, I realized that the military, while I had thought about it as a kid and always played soldier and things like that, it's actually a viable thing I could do as a career. And that, hey, they might even pay for school eventually. So all of a sudden, after someone suggested the military again, I started looking into it more and seeing it as an option that would be really fitting for me. More specifically, the Coast Guard. As I started to be attracted to more seagoing services and what they offered, what the Coast Guard offered, that they would give me a trade, that they give me a steady job, that security is there. And I also started to get a slight interest in medicine. So I thought that, hey, if I join the Coast Guard and try to pursue becoming a corpsman, I could really kind of find my way into medicine that way. That could be an ideal and worthwhile pursuit. And so I enlisted for 6 years, and I really loved my Coast Guard experience. The Coast Guard took me from New Jersey to Maine to Northern California to Virginia, and in Virginia I was stationed on a cutter that took me all over the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific. I really enjoyed my time there, mainly doing work as an information systems technician. After I got in, I realized that the medical path I wanted to pursue wasn't as ideal as I wanted it to be for me. And so I thought, hey, I'll try the IT track. And so that's what I did, mainly working communications and a lot of other jobs, because the Coast Guard is such a small service that you have to do many different things and really be a team player in a lot of different aspects, whether it's law enforcement or search and rescue, or aids to navigation, whatever the need is. And if you're there, you're probably going to be assisting in some way. And so I actually really enjoyed that aspect. And as much as I enjoyed the IT aspect of my Coast Guard career, I realized that I wasn't super excited about the hyper specificity of IT. And I knew that if I pursued that track and continued along there, that it would just be more becoming more an expert in that field, which was fine. But I realized that I wanted to expand my learning. I really wanted to learn about different things. And so it was then I started to think seriously about going to college, and not just go to college to learn different things, but also the whole package started to appeal to me. The going to classes, being able to talk to a professor, being able to walk across the college green, that all started to really get my attention. And so as my enlistment started to come up, I realized, hey, I think this is something I should do. I think I'm going to regret it if I can't. And now, thanks to my service, I have the GI Bill. And if I end up not liking college, I can still fall back on the skills I learned in the IT field, and that door is never completely closed. So I decided not to reenlist, and in 2017 I got out. I wasn't planning on doing college right away. What I was going to do was work a little bit, and then maybe find myself stumbling into it eventually. The job I had lined up, and this is where things got a little interesting in my life because I didn't really plan as well as I should have. I should have, had a job lined up far before I got out and really, searched out all my options and seen what was available to me. I did procure something at the last minute, but it turns out that I was going to do more military contracting, but because I was Coast Guard, the clearance issue was kind of a different thing that was needing to get some clarification through the DoD. Long story short, I basically wasn't able to get the job I waited for, and I ended up waiting 3 months after I got out of the Coast Guard before they told me we wouldn't be able to transfer your clearance. I'm sorry, we'd have to start the investigation all over again. And so I was kind of left in the lurch. And it wasn't completely their fault, it wasn't completely my fault, but at the same time, I felt kind of in a spot I never thought about. I was all of a sudden thinking, well, what do I do? My bank account was running low. I didn't know, maybe I should go back into the Coast Guard, but what would that say about me? I've only made it 3 months, and now I've got to, I've got to maybe go back in and say I couldn't hack it on the outside. And so I was really getting concerned there, and I didn't really know what I was going to do. But then I figured I was going to be okay. I was able to procure another job and worked actually contracting for the FAA, which was really interesting work. Really enjoyed it. But at the same time, also found out because I was also still interested in pursuing school. I found out that a lot of colleges, really good colleges, were looking for veterans. I was on a website of another Ivy League school actually one day, and they had a link to a veteran resource page. And there was just a plethora of resources available. And I started clicking and following these different, what I thought were rabbit trails that would lead to nowhere. Well, they ended up being really valuable sources that really equip a veteran who's searching for pursuing a quality higher education in being able to succeed in doing that and being able to be an optimal candidate as they're searching. And so I ended up getting a sponsor, and my sponsor was actually a sophomore at Dartmouth College. And he's the one who ended up telling me about this wonderful foundation called the Posse Foundation. And I ended up looking more into that and what they did, and found out they send these students in groups as a posse to these different partner schools, and that they were now doing that for veterans. And I saw that one of the partner schools was Dartmouth. I said, okay, well, if my sponsor's telling me he did this and he's loving it, and Dartmouth, which I'd heard about, going all the way back to my childhood again, and then realizing what it is and where it was and everything the institution of Dartmouth was, I was like, well, I've got to apply. And so I ended up applying, and following that summer of not knowing where I'd go, what I'd be doing, should I go back into the Coast Guard or not, I ended up applying and getting accepted to Dartmouth with the help of the Posse Foundation in 2017, early decision. So it was an incredibly exciting time when it was a scary time just a few months before. And so going to starting my Dartmouth experience 2018, that was also another transition, kind of like transitioning from the military to the civilian world. Again, transitioning as a student again, not having been in a classroom for quite a while. I took a few college courses, which were tremendous at Tidewater Community College in Virginia. Loved them. But being a full-time student again at a prestigious institute was another thing. And so that took some adjustment for sure, and just the social aspects were what I didn't expect right away. So there was a time of trying to learn to be a student again, and um, so there were some things I needed to learn as I did that. But it turns out that my Dartmouth experience has been something I would never trade for anything. Um, when I received that scholarship and being accepted, um, I didn't know what I was in for, I guess I could say more fully. And the longer I've experienced Dartmouth, the quality of the teaching and the amazing classes. I mean, if I look at, for instance, my academic track, I was planning on studying something like economics when I got there, kind of taking a very traditional route. Um, but then I took a class in art history, and I found that I loved the class and just found it irresistible as a subject, and realized it just barely scratching the surface. Well, I should take some more classes. And before you know it, I'm majoring in art history. And that has kind of been my Dartmouth experience. And the more um, the more time I spend there and the more things I do there, the more I find how enriching it is, and the quality of people, my peers, my friends, my professors. It's just been um, astronomically amazing. I can't stress that enough. And so, looking at where I am now as a junior, I would say that at first, it seemed to me when I first walked on the campus of Dartmouth that, yeah, I earned my way here, but what's it like to be here? What's it like to be a student here? I felt like a renter, and now I'm feeling like an owner. And in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic, being away from campus, I can't wait to get back, because I now know that that is my campus and I'm a part of it, and I'm now integrated into that Dartmouth legacy, and I just can't wait to get back. And that is my story of how I ended up at Dartmouth College.